Some Pokemon are good, some Pokemon are bad, and some are just straight up useless. How you guys doing? Welcome back to another video. Today, I'm going to be talking through each generation of Pokemon, going through each region, telling you guys the most useless Pokemon of each generation. Now, of course, this is just my opinion, but if you agree with my list, let me know in the comments below and subscribe if you guys are new. But anyway, let's go ahead and head out to Kanto. So in all of Generation 1, there's one Pokemon in particular that stands out. Obviously, I thought about Lickitung, I thought about Farfetch, but I don't want to use any Pokemon that I use from my worst Pokemon video that you can find up here. I want you to think of a Pokemon that's had a lot of prominence in the mainline series games, and even the TV show, but that happens to be weaker than an Oddish, a Jigglypuff, a Rattata, and has the same attack stat as a Pidgey. If you guessed Onix, you would be correct. Our first entry is Onix because this one actually breaks my heart. Onix is one of the first Pokemon that you see in a gym fight next to Geodude with Brock, and having such a menacingly tall, awesome looking Pokemon be horrifyingly weak, it's just so freaking depressing. It's like you go to this cave, Mount Moon, and you catch like a giant cool rock monster, only for it to take 4 rounds to kill a Rattata. What in the world? Also, don't be hating on my boy Raticate. That's my favorite Pokemon. You let that go, scriptwriter. Even though I wrote the script. Now, for each of these Pokemon, I do want to say that they do have their own uses. And Onix, of course, eventually evolves into Steelix. I'm talking pure Generation 1. Onix didn't evolve and was absolutely terrible. Now, Onix was not bad in one way. Obviously, its defense is through the roof. So if you're going against another physical enemy, it's good. But the problem is Onix just can't deliver on the attacking side. So in my opinion, one of the most useless Pokemon that you'd think would be really strong in Generation 1 is Onix. So now we're in the Johto region, one of my personal favorite regions, and unfortunately I think all of you guys saw this one coming. The most useless Pokemon in the Johto region is Unknown. Okay, look, I actually like Unknown. I think Unknown's a pretty cool Pokemon and I enjoy catching all the letters. However, no one can deny it sucks. Only knowing hidden power in most of the games, its offensive capabilities are absolutely useless. With an abysmal stat spread, I really think it's missing out on a really cool evolution. I've always thought it'd be really cool to see maybe like you have to have 3 of the forms evolve into a super cool fusion. Obviously that'd take a lot of coding and have to make pretty much unlimited models, but they make unlimited models for the Spinda guy. Why can't they make unlimited models for Evolved Unknown? The answer is unknown. Now, of course, this Pokemon's greatest part is its lore. There's so many things in the Ruins of Alph to look at when it comes to Unknown, but when it actually comes to things that it does well in battle, there's hardly anything. Hidden power is a middling move at best. There's not really many great things to say. I also consider Dunsparce for this area because you can get it so early, but honestly, I decided to go for Unknown because Dunsparce is better in every single way. So in my aforementioned video of talking about the worst Pokemon in every single region, I failed to mention Luvdisc in Generation 3. And of course, now we're in Hoenn, the most useless Pokemon in Gen 3 is Luvdisc. Now we gotta talk about Luvdisc's stats. Luvdisc is really fast. Well, at least pretty fast. It's pretty decent when it comes to speed, and it can outspeed a lot of things in Hoenn. However, its attacks are terrible. It's a water type, and there's a lot of water in Hoenn, and honestly, I think it should get a rating saying that. Anyway, its base stat total of the low 300s isn't going to help it win any fights, and besides, when you get it, it's egregiously late. Did you know that the only way to get a Luvdisc in Ruby and Sapphire was to use a Super Rod in Evergrande City? I'm not kidding. This 300 base stat total Pokemon was harder to find than the pseudo-legendaries. This is absurd. Now, of course, I want to talk about one positive for each of these Pokemon, and besides, personally, I think it has a great shiny. That doesn't really help its abilities in game. The best thing I think it is that you can farm it for heart scales in some of the games, which I guess is helpful if you need heart scales, but if you don't need heart scales, this thing is absolutely and utterly useless. So now we're in old Hisui, and now modern day Sinnoh, talking about the worst Pokemon, and the only legendary to be on this list. You probably saw it coming, Phione. What in the world are you? It's really bad when Pokemon do a thing where they have all of the stats are completely equal. You know, you have Cast Form, which is all 70s, you have Spinda, which is all 60s, at least that makes sense, 360, it makes sense. And then you have Glalie, which is all 80s. And then another legendary, which is also all 80s? It's really bad when a Pokemon does not excel in one particular thing that they're good at. So when this thing is all 80s, it just maybe will live a hit, but it can't kill anything in one turn. But it's not easy to get either. It's not like it's a card bank where at least you can find them in Pokemon Legends ZA, add them to your decks, be like, okay, whatever, it's a variation of Diancie, cool, we're done. With Phione, you have to go through the massive real world hurdle of getting a mythical Manaphy, which has been really hard to get except in one game, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, and breed it with a Ditto. Your reward? A piece of crap. Now, I will say Pokemon Legends Arceus did help this a little bit because there were easier ways to get one, but up until that game, it was just a mess. It was an absolute dog mess. Now, obviously, there is a runner-up for this region, but just like Generation 1, I don't want to use the same Pokemon that I've already talked about in a previous video, especially so recently, and that would be Male Combee. Of course, you can't evolve it. It's absolutely useless. But anyway, let's go back to America, specifically New York City, and go check out Unova. I struggled. Just like in my other video, I couldn't hardly find any Pokemon that was straight up useless. Every single thing had a niche. Even Vanillux, who I really didn't want to rate highly, was not bad stat-wise. And honestly, the Pokemon that is in this list is not even terrible either. But there's one Pokemon that has a 1% encounter rate in 3 seasons, a 5% in 1 season, that you find late game. And it has more weaknesses than any other base type. And that's Cryogonal. Cryogonal's base stats sit at 515, and while that's pretty high, one of the highest so far in today's video, as you can see, it's not that good. As an ice Pokemon, it has 4 weaknesses. And what are those 4 weaknesses? Mainly physical. Steel, rock, fighting, some fire types are physical, and Cryogonal's defense is an awful 50. While its special defense is really good and its special attack's not bad, it's still an ice Pokemon. Generation 5, the only special moves that it gets as stab is Ice Beam, and while Ice Beam's good, the only other special attacks that it gets are Solar Beam and Sheer Cold. And Sheer Cold's not even technically a move! When you're in a region that has really strong fighting types like Sock and Throw and Girder and all of these guys that were just kind of unlocked with Gen 5, you have a Pokemon that can't live a hit from likely a Beedrill, and that's a little bit concerning. And now I feel French, because we are in the beautiful region of Kalos, which happens to be my personal favorite, except for Legends ZA, that game sucks. So Gen 6 did something interesting, where it started making every Pokemon good. It honestly felt like instead of giving each Pokemon like a Medal of Honor, it started giving everybody a participation trophy, making everybody's base stats pretty solid, except one. Slurpuff is bad in almost every way. Slurpuff is a dreaded trade evolution, meaning that you have to get the item and also trade it to evolve. What do you get? A base stat of 480, where the best stat is its defense at 86. Everything is yellow, which means everything is P. It sucks. It's not like egregiously bad like some other entries on this list, but it's bad enough to just be like, okay, it can do a little bit of everything, but it can't do anything well. And it's like, that's not good. It's like, at least with Raticate is a base stat of 413. Obviously that's terrible, but at least it's somewhat fast and it hits somewhat hard and it gets a somewhat good move in Hyper Fang. But unfortunately with Slurpuff, it just kind of sucks at everything. Now we're in Alola, and I feel the weight of Cosmoem. Now, Cosmoem is not the most useless Pokemon on this list. I feel like that'd be a little bit boring. I kind of only really wanted to choose Fully Evolved, hence why I didn't choose Combee earlier as well. But when it comes to Cosmoem, obviously it's really bad. It's just a slightly better Cosmog, but very little so. So we're going to talk about Pyukumuku. Pyukumuku is terrible. It cannot learn an attacking move, and even though with Wobbuffet it kind of has a similar gimmick of that, it's a worse Wobbuffet because its stats are awful. Its ability only causes the target damage if it dies, meaning that it's just so situational, you're never going to want to use it in a real situation. I will say it's not as crazy bad as some of the other entries on this list, but only really having counter with a base 60 attack stat, that's not probably going to be enough to kill a normal type. And that's the only thing that it's super effective against. And it's not even stab. All in all, this Pokemon is just awful. Don't use it. Just don't waste your time. Gimmick Pokemon are never good. And that's why we're in Galar right now. Wow, I feel so British. But anyway, Galar is a similar situation of Kalos, where no Pokemon is outwardly terrible. Even the starter little chipmunk guy, Squirrel, whose name I really can't remember right now, is pretty decent with its ability, and it hits relatively hard. Even Dubwool has some use. But there's one Pokemon that I think actually kind of sucks, and it sucks that it does, which is Cramorant. Cramorant has a very interesting gimmick where it has the ability Gulp Missile. It requires Cramorant to use Surf or Dive to load up a projectile, sometimes a Pikachu, sometimes a fish, but if Cramorant is slower than the opponent, and with 85 base speed, it normally is, it gets hit before it can fetch the fish. It's incredibly inconsistent on a Pokemon with really subpar stats. I want Cramorant to be good because I think it's a really cool gimmick, and I like that they added a little special visualization, but it does not hit hard enough to warrant it a good Pokemon. Wow, I don't know what happened with me with this entry. I really just screwed up my script. But again, Cramorant's probably the best one on this list, and that's a little bit boring. We don't want to talk about that too long. We're talking about awful Pokemon. So let's go ahead and move on to Generation 9, which may have the worst Pokemon I've ever seen. You know how I said at the beginning of this video I was never ever gonna mention any Pokemon that I used in my worst Pokemon of all time? Well, I lied, because we have two right here. We have Wugtrio and we have Spidops. What do you get when you mix them together? Trash. They are awful. Okay, I will say Wugtrio is a little bit better because it does have a water typing that's a little bit more helpful than Bug, and it does move fast and it hits hard, which obviously is not terrible. It's extremely frail, which sucks, and it's probably not fast enough to warrant it being as frail as it is, but it's not that good. With Spidops, its stats are abysmal. Like, trash. Spidops' moveset, and so does Wugtrio's, is just not that solid. Wugtrio's signature move, Triple Dive, is not that great. It's fine for it, but it also only does like 90 damage, and it's not 100% accurate. And since it's not 100% accurate, if you miss, you're probably dead because of how weak it really is. And Spidops just freaking sucks. I love my Terry from my playthrough, but he's awful. But anyway, that's just my opinion. I want to hear your guys' opinion. What's the worst Pokemon? What's the most useless one? Let me know. I love you guys so much. I will see you guys in the next video. You guys have a great day. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.